All right, we are here on the Or Umbrella podcast with a very, very special guest today, Larry Blamire. I've been practicing your name all week. Is that working?
Well, that sounded pretty good.
All right. So somebody told me
I got it wrong at least 20 times, Larry. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
So tried.
Well, Larry Blamire is many, many things. He is a Renaissance man of multiple talents that include writing, directing, and acting in film and on stage, which we've enjoyed so much of his work there. He's an author of books, which is the best kind of author there is, and comic books as well, such as I Didn't Know You Came with Raisins and Doc Armstrong's Suburb at the Edge of Never. He is a tremendous artist who has a wide variety of projects I personally enjoyed. I actually have the Tales of Discomfort Bagoot hanging up in my house. I got a copy
Excellent.
of it there. He's the writer, director, and star of movies we love, like Lost Skelleton of Cadavra, Lost Skelleton Returns Again, Dark and Stormy Night, The Trail of the Screaming Forehead, which the director's cut just came out on Blu-ray recently, so you definitely want to check that out and get that if you haven't already. We watched that as a family recently and really enjoyed it. And I wanted to put a special emphasis on the audio adventure book of Big Dan Frater, volume, is it volume 1, volume 2?
Volume 2. And you can
volume 2.
One with it, yep.
All right. It's a CD series written by Larry Blamire and starring Brian Howe, Allison Martin, and Dan Conroy, among others. The Kickstarter for this project kicked off today, so please go and visit that Kickstarter and support the great art in the great comedy and the great writing in which Larry has done. Larry's also one of the best follows on social media you will possibly find. I'm continuously, Larry, I gotta tell you, I consider you a comic genius.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I do. I think that your posts are just so incredibly intelligent, funny, unique, and we're going to talk about your comedy style and all that here in a little bit. But first of all, we want to start off all of our podcasts with a silly question, and Michael's got that question for us.
Okay. We are silly people, after all. Okay, so Larry, if you could have one character in any of your movies become the next president of the United States of America, who would it be?
Animala.
That's...
Animala. And my second answer would be any of them but a Fleming.
Yes. Keep them out.
That'd be a little bit like what we have now.
I love that answer. Animala, such a great character. I loved Animala's character very much, and I know you appreciate it. Well.
Yeah, and that character is such a tribute to Jen, who just really created Animala's words on a page, and she took that and just really made her so multidimensional and gave her so much variety and absolutely knew what to do with that character. So, yeah, Animala for president.
Excellent. Well, that's what we need to campaign for. So I think that's a good thing. Okay, so next question, Larry. By following you on Facebook and watching your movies, it's evident you're a huge fan of older television and film. What initially sparked your interest in TV and film, and what are some of the first shows or movies that really captured your imagination?
There's so much because I would immediately say science fiction and horror movies and stuff that were running on TV, but also the Three Stooges, the absurdity of the Three Stooges, who I still watch and love, and mainstream movies too, because I grew up loving westerns. I'm a huge western fan. Right now I'm going through the Complete Gunsmoke series,
right.
And putting some reviews up about that, which is just a great piece of work that lasted 20 years. So there's kind of a wide variety of stuff that has influenced me and fueled my creativity, which might explain why I want to do so many different things, because I want to wear a lot of hats, not necessarily by choice. I feel sort of compelled to do a lot of things because I just enjoy them. And then, there's also art, comic books. I mean, there's so many. I'm very visually oriented, so those things are going to play a big part for me.
Sweet, sweet.
I love the visuals too in the movies and a lot of the things you do, because they're iconic. They stick in your head. It's something. Trail of the Screaming Forehead. I remember just the big forehead. You can't get that out of your head for days after you watch it. Which I think is the idea. But I think that's great, Jonathan.
So the B movie genre is one that me and Michael personally have always been a big fan of. And a lot of times B movies are special because they're sincere efforts that just fail miserably. Like Troll 2 is one that has gotten a lot of popularity, or The Room and everything like that. But you have this unique genre that is a tribute to the old B movies and everything like that. But it's also absurd and silly. There's a sincere effort, but it's also intended to be comedic, intended to be funny. When we saw Lost Skeleton of Cadavra, I always say Cadavra, but it's Cadavra. I'm getting mixed up there with things. But when we saw Lost Skeleton of Cadavra, it was quickly evident that this was a love letter to old cheesy horror movies mixed with your trademark silly and absurd humor that just hit home with really everybody who we've personally watched it with. We've had, my Uncle Tony was the one who introduced it to us, and him and his local theater company have had viewing parties, much like The Room, much like Rocky Horror Picture Show, to where they're just like, hey, we have this unique movie you have to see. Have you seen it yet? Let's watch it together. Let's throw a party. And then it's kind of evangelistic in a way that it goes, to the next people. Like, well, I just saw this movie. Now I got to show it to somebody. Now I got to show it to somebody.
I am grateful for all the sharing that goes on. There's a lot of earth sharing that happens with my movies, because feel, I guess, compelled to or encouraged to share with friends and family, and that's really encouraging. I mean, that's a nice way to have a movie, to have word of mouth spread about your movies.
Absolutely. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about what would you describe your style of movie making and your style of humor to be, and where did you kind of get that
from? I
from?
had to boil it down to something really simple. I would say earnestness with a straight face, because I don't think there's really any, as far as the humor that I am involved with creating, I don't think there's any that where that wouldn't apply, because it's very important in the movies, and in the Big Dan Frater audio adventures. The characters are all, they have to be earnest. They have to be honest. They have goals, and if you were to play it comedically, I don't think it would work. Unfortunately, I have a wonderful crew of actors that has just kept expanding over the years, and great people, and they get that. They get it. They get it that the straightest delivery of the most absurd line. That's the way to make it work.
Michael, you got the next question?
Yeah. So casting for your movies, a lot of the same actors have been in each of the big films you've done. Were these people individuals you already knew and wrote parts for, or did you all just hit it off so much that you kept bringing them back? And after that, I have a follow-up question, but I wanted to start with your cast. Like, how did y'all kind of...
A little bit of both, because there were some folks that I'd worked with in theater that were great people and a lot of fun to work with, and they were friends. And working with your friends is the best.
Oh yeah.
But then when I started making the films, Brian Howe, who's a buddy of mine from way back, and from doing theater in Boston, he became we joked that he was the unofficial casting director because he introduced me to Faye Masterson, Andy Parks, and folks in LA that became this expanded stock company. So there's some folks, and of course now I've known them for years too. So some folks, we go back to theater, some not quite that far back, but and then there's the veteran character actors that I've gotten to work with, like through Andy Parks. I met his wonderful late mom, Betty Garrett, who was just so wonderful, and so I was able to work with her, Jimmy Karen, and H.M. Wynant. It's been really just a thrill to work with folks that you've admired in TV and movies. So I really like the range of this company, and part of the fun is writing parts that are very different. You don't want to keep writing the same parts for people. It's fun to see them play something totally different from the last thing they did, and it shows them off in a way that actors should be showed off, because they have, a lot of them have range, but the movie system likes to categorize them so they don't often get to stretch. But this is a great bunch.
That's one of my favorite things about seeing one of your movies too, that I'm like, oh, who is he going to be? Who is she going to be? Like, just discovering, what role, what character are they going to be? Having that troupe is really neat to have, that camaraderie and being able to work together. Jonathan, you're going to say something.
Oh no, what's your follow-up question?
Oh yeah, this is important. Okay, so of all the characters you interacted with, the people that you played with, really, what was the Skelleton like on the set? I mean, I just have to know.
Well, I hate to badmouth actors. I really, I'd rather not say anything, because he needs work, and I don't think I want to put a tarnish, put a stain on his record.
Probably for the best.
It's just I'm just going to let that one go. And folks want to hire him, then please go right ahead and keep your fingers crossed.
Well, that's very important.
That's all I'm saying.
So I mentioned our Uncle Tony. Our Uncle Tony we wished he could have been on the podcast with us today. He had a little bit different schedule, but he wanted to ask this question, and his question was about the names of your characters. The names of your characters have always been so so incredibly unique and incredibly different. Like, you don't hear the names of characters like we mentioned Animala, Crowbar and Lattice, Burling Famish Jr., Dr. Von Vander Von, Mrs. Cupboard, Big Dan Frater. How do you come up with the fun names of your characters, and how do you balance that out with a normal name like Paul and Betty Armstrong?
Paul Armstrong? What kind of name is that? First of all, I gotta correct you. It's Cupboard.
Cupboard, okay.
Yeah, not Cupboard, or what? I don't know. But so please remember that in the future.
Yeah.
So I got to tell you, naming characters is one of my favorite things, and that goes back to my playwriting days, when I had, but it depends on the piece. I did a dark comedy called Jump Camp, where the characters had some strange names, and that fit. But then I did a sci-fi thriller called Interface, which was sort of a more realistic thing, and the names are very, very commonplace, but you still want them to be somewhat memorable. But I I think I have a method, a formula for naming them. It's kind of like you roll these dice, and if they kind of click, clack, together in a pleasing way, like Cup Cupboard or Burrowing Famish Jr., Sebastian Fanmore, then you know you've got a name. And how do those consonants knock into each other? I mean, it's all about the sound. And truly, a lot of the names come to me as a sound before they make sense. Well, they never make sense. But when I wrote Lost Skelleton, though, it was important to me that Paul and Betty have very commonplace, sort of slightly mundane sounding names. And I don't want to get, I don't want bad mail from people named Paul or Betty. Those are fine names. But I mean, but compared to the other names, they are. And Roger Fleming has a sound to it that, to me, it just sounded like it could be a movie villain. But they're not particularly strange names. So I wanted them to be a little more grounded. And then later, like in Trail of Screaming Forehead, you've got Droxy Chappelle and Nick Vassadine, and those are a little more eccentric. Faye's character in Forehead, the scientist, is Sheila Baxter, which is just a one-letter variation from Baxter, just off a little bit. I don't really have an exact formula, but I do enjoy naming characters. It is fun.
That's great. So we were fortunate to attend a viewing of Lost Skelleton Returns Again and Dark and Stormy Night, and I was so excited that it was a double feature. I mean, I was just, amazed. And we went to a theater in Dallas where you and some of the other cast members introduced the film, had a Q&A, and watched the film with the rest of the audience in the theater. What are experiences such as that like for you? And
that experience is unbeatable. You just can't get better than a live audience, than sitting with an audience that's enjoying your film and then talking to them one-on-one afterwards. That I hope we get back to live theater and going to the movies pretty soon, because that's an important experience. It's a communal experience. You can't beat that.
We mentioned at the top of the show the wide variety of projects you have blessed us with. How do you juggle so many, you kind of mentioned it earlier, so many artistic mediums? We mentioned your playwriting and your, all of those different things. So how do you juggle those mediums? How do you decide which project to go to next after you kind of put the bow on the project that you just got done working with?
How did you know that I put a bow on them when I'm done? I literally do that. I can't believe you do that. I thought that was sort of a more personal thing, and I'm nervous that you knew that. I'll tell you, the weird thing about, for me with projects, I don't pick the project. I think the project picks me. And it's where I'm compelled to go. I just put out a book of my cartoons, my single panel cartoons, called, what's it called? Okay. Johnny Rusted, He Don't Like No Fried Food. That's the name of it. And there's a title you've never heard before. And it's a book of cartoons. And I was doing these sketchy cartoons, more like, they were, exaggerated doodles. They were really for fun. And then I got into them, and there I am doing them, and I put up a book of them. And so stuff comes up to me like that, like the book of comic book covers that I did, Great Scott, these absurd alternate reality comic book covers. Again, I was doing like one a day. I was like feverishly just on that track, and sometimes it's a bit stressful because you get pulled by different muses. And so I'm supposed to be writing a screenplay and I might be pulled in this other direction. I really want to be doing a painting. I want to be, and there's a lot of things that I like to do. So it makes it a little difficult sometimes. It's a weird thing. Creativity to me is one of the great mysteries. I don't understand it. Maybe never.
Us either. Michael, you got the next question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I totally get where you're coming from, Larry. I think that when you want to do a lot of different things, it's hard to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do today because there's this other project that's, just pulling me, drawing me in. So I totally understand. So we were thinking about some of the movies you made, and one of the things we mentioned is that you say some pretty crazy things, absurd things with a complete straight face. But I know that when you're recording these things, are there any moments where it's just really hard not to just completely lose it and to just burst out laughing? Is there a particular scene or time when it's been really hard for y'all to keep a straight face doing your production and directing?
Well, we've certainly had moments like that where it's hard to get through a certain scene, and I don't think I'm going to recall one offhand, because I think I'd say that there are surprisingly few, and it's just that we're on such a tight schedule.
Sure,
they're not giant budget movies, and so we have time constraints, and we've got to make our day, and all the actors are aware of that, and I think it keeps that cracking up to a minimum. So it requires some great concentration. I remember in the seance scene in Dark and Stormy Night when Allison Martin, as Mrs. Cup covered the medium, I told her you just do whatever gestures you want. If you set Allison loose and she'll do crazy stuff because she's one of the funniest people. And sure enough, and I remember that was kind of hard, if she looks at you, if you're in a scene with her and she turns and looks at you, and that can be enough sometimes. So I remember that. I think the seance was a bit hard. But for the most part, I think we're pretty, we're pretty restrained in that way because we have to be.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense.
That's interesting. That's a dynamic I never thought about before because obviously I've never acted in a film of any kind. I am very terrible at memorizing lines, and so anytime I'm interviewing somebody who has an ability and a talent that I do not have, it is so fascinating for me to think about because there's no way I could memorize that many lines, and there's no way I could not crack up. I just don't have that DNA in me. But that's something I've never thought about before as far as, okay, we got to get this done. We can't goof around too much. We have to be professionals about that because even though you're artists and you're creators and you're actors, you're also professionals, and this is a professional production, and there's more to it than us just having fun. So do you, when the filming stops and you have a little bit of a break, is that when you can really cut loose and have fun and enjoy your time with your coworkers and co-stars and everything like that?
Well, I think most of that happens when we're not on camera. Now the problem is with me, I'm either on camera or I'm behind the camera, so I don't get a lot of that. I end up missing. I watch behind the scenes footage and I'm cracking up, going, "Wow, I wish I could have seen that." Because you got the cast hanging out, and there's a lot of funny stuff there. These are very funny people, but I'm either in front of the camera or behind it, which sometimes can be a bit, that's a bit of a challenge sometimes. But yeah, I end up missing a lot of that fun stuff. But we do have, we would get together before the shoot begins, and we would watch some movies as to sort of see the tone that we're going for, and that kind of thing. So we definitely have our fun, and there's always a rap party.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've been to a couple of rap parties in plays I wasn't even at, and those are you could tell the stress just kind of leave the room, and everybody's just down for a really good time. And so that's definitely an excellent thing.
Yeah.
So I got to ask about, you mentioned kind of watching movies, seeing the tone. You mentioned being a fan of movies. I noticed on your Facebook, you'll highlight not just your stuff, but you'll highlight some other stuff that you watch growing up, or that are just good things to watch, and you're like, this is a great performance. You'll just point out those great performances. So do you watch a lot of recent movies, and what are some of the recent movies that have really caught your attention and maybe given you some inspiration?
Well, I try to keep up, and I have lately I enjoyed Ad Astra. I thought that was pretty good. I thought it was quite good. I mean, especially the texture of it, the more than the story. I enjoyed the just that total immersion, that feeling of being in deep space. And I found that pretty tense. I thought The Good Liar was terrific. Helen Mirren and Ian McKellen were just, I mean, they carried that movie. And I thought it was really, really good. Good twists, and very well done. I like Knives Out. Now, as an old Dark House guy, I'm a nut about old Dark House movies, obviously. And Knives Out is really yet another modern variation on an old Dark House movie. Two of the books that I've read most recently were modern old Dark House types too. Actually, one called Endgame and another one called An Unwanted Guest, and they're recent thrillers, but they really have that feeling of the old Dark House type thing, with the isolation, an isolated group of people, the paranoia. I love those kind of stories. So those are some that I've enjoyed recently, I guess.
That's good. So what are some of your proudest moments and biggest triumphs of your career thus far? And what are some things you'd really love to achieve in the future?
Well, I'd say for the first question, Lost Skelleton of Cadavra, getting that in the can, racing down the mountain, fighting the setting sun, getting the last shot, getting that in the can. We did it, and was very proud of our little troop for doing that and shooting it in 10.5 days. And then, getting the screening at the Egyptian Theater, the American Cinematheque, where around 600 people showed up to watch an unknown movie in Hollywood. That was a great feeling. And then the third, I guess it's a sort of trifecta having around Lost Skelleton, because the third was getting it picked up by Sony. So getting it in the can, first screening, and picked up by Sony. I mean, those were tremendous things. What was the second part of your question?
And what are some things you'd really love to achieve in the future?
Oh, well, everything. Only everything.
That'll
I want, most immediately, I want to see this Kickstarter be successful. Seems to be off to a good start, and this is for Volume 2 of The Adventures of Big Dan Frater. And these are the characters who, I used these characters in Trail of Screaming Forehead, and I had actually came up with the characters before the movie, and at some point I thought they'd be a good animated series or whatever. And then Brian Howe a few years ago said, what if we did like an old radio show? So we did the first volume of Audio Adventures, and had some guest stars, and I write the scripts. Brian directs the actors himself, Allison Martin, Dan Conroy, and whatever guest stars we have. So this is part 2, Volume 2, the Kickstarter we're doing now. So please go look for it. And I made a little cartoon for the Kickstarter video. So if you go to the Kickstarter page, please watch the cartoon, because I worked hard on that. That was kind of fun to do. I wanted to do like a Rocky and Bullwinkle kind of minimalist, limited animation thing. and it just seemed fitting. So besides that, there's a lot of things. I'd like to go back to my Steam Wars project at some point, which is a very different thing, a kind of a gritty steampunk adventure. That's a serious, more or less serious thing, which I'd love to see. That would be a big movie. That's a big movie right there. If it happens as a movie, it's giant.
That's a big genre too. I mean, the steampunk has really gotten big over the past few years.
It's huge. And I would also, I'd like to write a second Doc Armstrong novel. That was really fun, but it was a lot of work. That's the only time I've done a novel. I have people ask me for another volume of Western horror stories, which would be my third, and I don't know if I have that in me or not. But it's definitely a lot of things that I want to get to. I also had an idea for a new screenplay that is in an early stage. So yeah, a lot of stuff.
I personally, one of these days, would love to see a musical. That would be. Just saying, just throwing that out there.
Speaking it into existence.
Mm-hmm.
So you talked a little bit about the Dan Frater audiobook Kickstarter, which is, this is day one. And like you said, it's going well so far, but we really want anybody who listens to this to go check that out. There's so much stuff on there. There's the prizes that people get for pledging a certain amount that are fantastic.
Let me just interject for a second there, Jonathan. One of them is to do voiceover work on the Blu-ray releases that we've done in the last year and a half. That I've done with Hydraulic Entertainment, Mark Stewart's company. We have offered voiceovers at a certain pledge level. And it's been one of the most popular rewards we've offered on Kickstarter. So we have some opportunities again for voiceover work on this new one. And there's already some takers. So it always seems to go well. So I just want to mention that. I'm sorry to
No, that's great.
Oh, no. And so what is it about the character Big Dan Frater? You mentioned that you kind of came up with him before Trail of Screaming Forehead that inspired you to continue to tell his story? Because you've written so many good characters, and Big Dan Frater seems to have a lot of traction, a lot of legs to him. What is it about Big Dan Frater that inspires you to continue to tell his story? And what can we expect from the audiobook?
Well, the volume 2 will have 5 new adventures. And I think the thing about Big Dan, Dutch, and Millie is that they are like the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew. They are like I don't know, Rocky and Bullwinkle. They're like there's nothing quite like them for me, and for our crew that's making these. I think we like the fact that they harken back to a kind of innocent time. They go and solve adventures that are just totally strange and sometimes ridiculous, and sometimes there's no there. I mean, they get to the end of a mystery and there was really nothing at all. So it's really kind of the journey. It's a fun kind of thing. They are absurdist. And the other thing is Brian Howe, Allison Martin, and Dan Conroy have this wonderful chemistry. And it was apparent in Trail of Screaming Forehead. And there's something very appealing about them. Also, I think in my heart I'm a blue-collar guy, which I was for a while. And so these are my blue-collar heroes, kind of, and
everyday heroes.
Yeah, they're regular people make good kind of thing, and we could use more of that these days. And but Brian and Allison and Dan make them very, very appealing and engaging and fun, and they have they have a certain structure that is really appealing. How it's almost like Big Dan is the adult sometimes, and the other thing is we can take them anywhere. They can go anywhere and do anything, and they just really harken back to good old-fashioned adventure, even if it is silly.
Well, it's supposed to be. That's the point. So that's
Yeah.
great.
Absolutely. I listened to a little bit of the clips and everything from Volume 1 and looked at the stuff, and I'll tell you what, guys, you got to check this out. Larry is, like I said, he's such a genius, and the way he writes and the way he does these characters and the way these characters perform is so fantastic. So you definitely want to go to that Kickstarter. You definitely want to check it out. We'll put some links in this podcast description so you can check out not only that, but your website that has all of these different projects that you can check out and you can purchase. And you want to talk a little bit about your website and also some of your YouTube, some of your other stuff that is coming out or has come out that people can check out and how to find your different projects.
Sure. Well, the best way I would encourage folks to anyone interested to look for my public page, Larry Blammeyer, and everything that is going on, everything we're going to do or about to do or have done is on there pretty much. So things go through there. The website bigdanfrater.com is, I think it's bigdanfrater.com, right? Well, if you do a search for Big Dan Frater, it comes up. And that has a lot of audio samples and all about Big Dan Frater. And also, I'm also on Twitter, and same thing there. If you follow me on Twitter, you can keep up with my wacky doings.
Wacky doings.
Sounds good.
I love your wacky doings.
And one more. Hydraulic Entertainment. That's where you can get the Blu-rays, and you'll be and more. So look for Hydraulic Entertainment. Search that.
Very good. Well, I think that's about it, Jonathan. We've asked our questions, and we want to tell you, first of all, Larry, thank you so much for coming on our show and our podcast and just indulging all of our crazy questions.
Yeah,
and,
can we start for a second?
Sure.
Did you want to ask about the one-act plays?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I was about to tell Michael about that.
Yeah, I had it figured out and everything.
Yes, tell us about your one-act plays, because my Uncle Tony he directed let's see what we got written down here. My Name is Leslie. Yeah, he directed My Name is Leslie, and he was wondering, he's like, hey, when are those one-act plays going to come out? And because he's ready to direct another one.
Well, I only have among my plays that have been published, only two of the comedic one acts have been published. My Name is Leslie, and Dost Pity Me with Pet is the other one. But I've started publishing some of my other plays, and I want to get to the one acts too, and do a volume and just collect them all, because there's quite a few comedic one act plays that I've written. In the meantime, though, if your uncle or anyone else out there was interested in checking out my other one-act plays for performances, then please just get in touch. Message me on Facebook or Twitter, and I'm happy to get you a script. So there you go.
Awesome.
That's gonna make Uncle T and a lot of other people very excited. Larry, we just want to say we appreciate your work so much. We appreciate your ability to entertain. We appreciate all the art and all the level of just joy that you bring to the world. And I think a whole lot of people would be they would benefit greatly from learning more about you and learning more about your projects and supporting your projects. Because to me, you're one of the best out there, and we really appreciate you.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's all the time we're going to take up for you today, Larry. Thank you so much for being on. Go to his page, Larry Blammeyer, on Facebook and Twitter, and check out all of his stuff. Contribute if you can to the Kickstarter. and just do whatever you can to support this incredible man and this incredible entertainer and artist. So thank you once again. We'll see everybody later on.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.